We've talked a little bit about lighting. We've talked about how lighting can create a mood for an office and how your tenants can change their emotions with lighting. One of the foremost leaders in lighting for spaces is Philips, and I'm delighted to have Stacy Gillen. How are you?
Thank you. I'm wonderful. And yourself?
Wonderful. Welcome
Great.
to the show.
Thank
so
you.
what are you seeing in the show specific to lighting that's got your attention?
You know, it's really exciting because I think this may be one of the first years that really lighting is making a presence. I think the advent of digital light and being able to propagate it everywhere and use it as an infrastructure and a network is really now core to where intelligent buildings need to go to leverage that valuable infrastructure.
So tell me what Philips is offering in this space.
So we actually have a full connected proposition. So when you think about this notion of smart, right? You think about smart lighting or smart buildings, we hear it everywhere, you know, smartphones, smart apps.
Sure.
Really, and what makes it smart, right? If you look at our smartphone alarm clock, for example, you set it just like your grandmother did her wind-up electric clock, right? And to be able to set an alarm that's really intelligent, that actually more can look at your first appointment of the day, look at traffic patterns, look at weather, and can really smart and advise you. The same applies to buildings, right? So this notion of we have been advising our buildings to do work for us, and now we need to enable our buildings to advise us in a different way. And so what we're offering really is this notion of a granular network of sensors. So we've heard a lot about power over Ethernet lighting here at the show, so that's a big one for us.
Sure.
And now having that ability to add sensors to that network, and you have IP addressable lights now, which you can then use as your network, has really been a big thing.
So what does it look like? I walk into my smart building, and what happens differently than what would happen with me today?
So it's a great question. So visually, it really doesn't look different, right? If you look up, and you would never know if that's a PoE light or a traditional light that we've had in the past.
Sure.
But what's different is actually you can now use your smartphone. So with visible light communication, or VLC, there's the two-way communication with your smartphone. So it can recognize you and your preferences. When you get to your spot that you've chosen to sit for the day, you can control your lighting environment. You can fine-tune it for specifically what you need. You can adjust temperature through the sensors that are now part of the light. So you become an interactive part of that building.
We just gave away a Philips Hue system. What kind of data do you have on the emotional impact of light, temperature, and color?
Yeah, that's a great one for us. So with this notion of human-centric lighting, right? It's been proven time and time again by being able to fine-tune lighting more in line with your circadian rhythms, right? We all have different moods and things that we get relative to light. And so really this idea now of using light, and particularly in the office space, of improving productivity. So being able to give you more natural lighting indoors to boost your performance and your ability to concentrate.
I mean, even here at the show, we've got these wonderful windows on both sides, and it feels less like a normal trade show because you're somewhat aware of what's going on. So do some of your lighting systems mimic a warmer light around noontime, and they get cooler around 6? Is that a normal? Is that a normal thing for Philips, or is that a special thing?
No, it really, I mean, going forward will be very normal, right?
Great.
So the adoption, we're not quite there yet, but I think with the technology, it's coming.
What other technologies do you have for us that are going to delight us in that way?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you really look at the ability to do personal control and personal productivity, right? There's a big push now when you think about total building efficiency. It used to be about energy efficiency.
Right.
It's not about that anymore. It's about how do we actually improve productivity and space utilization. So the ability to actually put people where they need to be when they need to be. Perhaps you've got a meeting that's on a different floor and you're trying to get between it, but the conference room next door is open, so it can reroute you to that. So those types of things.
Oh, that's great. And so are these sensors biometric sensors as well? They're telling that this is a human who's going into this room or that room?
Yeah, I mean, it can, specifically with the VLC communication, you know you're communicating then with someone's smartphone, right?
Okay.
So a little bit different from that standpoint.
Have you heard about Li-Fi, the idea of, so do you know anything about this? This is like coming down the pipe to us.
It is coming down the pike, and to be honest, I think it's one of those great things from a lighting perspective. It's just what devices will work on Li-Fi at this point.
Right.
Because it's really based on camera type technology and phones, so I think as we all evolve as an ecosystem, we'll learn more as time goes by.
Terrific. I guess the couple of questions I've sort of noted here, I mean, is this how much of this is proof of concept and how much of this is existing proof point?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. So we've heard a lot about amazing proof points this week, right? So just starting with the Edge in Amsterdam, recognizable for so many different things, right? The world's most sustainable building and really most technology connected. So that is propagated actually with 6,500 connected luminaires that are helping to control. In addition to doing that technology, it enables them to really now look at energy savings of somewhere close to $100,000 annually.
Wow.
And by maximizing space utilization, they are estimating a $1.6 million reduction basically in real estate usage just by space optimization, which is pretty amazing. So that's just one. We have some others. Water Park Place, which you've heard a bit about, which is actually the Cisco headquarters in Toronto, so owned by Oxford Properties. This is another great building that we've done in partnership with Cisco, and again focused on personal control and the occupant's experience in the space. And then probably last but not least, we did a really innovative building at Clemson, in Clemson, South Carolina, the Watt Family Innovation Center. That's a fully connected POE building, but very interactive, where we're working with the students to actually manage the building, which is a first of concept for us.
And what are they doing? So I'm a student at Clemson. What might I be doing to help control the space?
So they are actually looking at the data analytics. So when we start thinking about now, what do we do with this data that's coming off this rich and robust lighting network? How do I understand how to manage classroom allocation? They have a lot of collaborative spaces. So they have movable walls, so they can reconfigure this space based upon their trends in occupancy, which has been a really neat thing to watch.
Go a little bit deeper, if you can, into space utilization. Why does having a smart lighting a smartly lit building allow me the freedom to change how the space is used?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's really, when you look at the data, and so leveraging sensors or visible light communication, you can start to study trends around where you actually use or don't use spaces. And as maybe some sit vacant, you can do the analysis to say, well, maybe it needs to seat 10 more people.
Right.
So then you actually change your walls, and now you have a conference room that's more usable or a lecture space. So it's pretty cool stuff.
It's amazing how a theme that emerges here, the data, the more data that we have, and it can't just be raw. I mean, someone has to give us an interface where we can make head or tail of it.
Exactly.
But it really lets us know things that we had no idea about.
Exactly.
And minor changes in behavior that make everything better. Is there any example of that from you that you guys have observed where you go, wow, we just saved a company a hell of a lot of time, money, and energy from something that they had no idea was going on?
Yeah, I think maybe it's, there's several examples that come to mind, but really just transit time and conference room use, right? How many times that conference room gets scheduled, but then no one's actually in it?
Right.
So how do you release that room so then a team that actually wants to go in there can use it? So increasing productivity.
But so how would that work? My employee has scheduled a conference room for 10 a.m. Turns out it's at 10:15, no one's in there. Now, I would love to use that room, but I can't because it's on the schedule. How is Philips helping me to know, hey, you know what, Jerry? That room is available.
Basically with the sensors that are deployed, so you know that no one's entered the space.
Because they haven't used their smartphone to engage
or
it.
even if you have an occupancy sensor, for example, and no one's entered the room, then we work with our great partners, and Cisco being one of those, where then the space becomes released in the calendar system.
So that immediately updates the calendar.
Exactly.
This is very interesting stuff.
Pretty fun stuff.
So, okay, so here's my last question or so to you. One, how do we get all these people to get on the train? And two, what else do they need to know?
Yeah, I think, really it's awareness first and foremost. The world is changing so quickly. It's been neat to be here over the last couple of days and people saying, wow, this is the first time you've been here. So I think just we're here to educate and to provide that information. There's all sorts of strategic and creative ways that we can help customers and buildings acquire technology, from return on investment and those sorts of things. But I think probably the most important message is to leave is light is no longer just light. Light is the pathway for so many more important things that will become the backbone of the intelligent building of the future.
Stacy Gillen, I can't thank you enough for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Terrific.
Yes.
From